and welcome to the Neo News Today podcast. I am your host, Dylan of Neo News Today. In episode 30 of the NNT pod, I had a chance to sit down and speak with Fouad Soultana, the Chief Operating Officer of Novem Gold, a gold-backed token project in the Neo ecosystem. I had first been introduced to the Novem project in February of 2019 when I had the chance to chat with the CTO of Novem, Christoph Clocker, and subsequently got to meet Christoph in person the following month at DevCon 2 in Seattle. Since then, Fouad has taken more of a public-facing role in the company and has participated in various podcasts and delivered presentations to the Novem investors. Suffice to say, it was really great to be able to finally meet and talk with Fouad. In this conversation, Fouad and I discussed what Novem is, the company's background, and how it's different from other gold blockchain projects, how NNN tokens represent ownership of the underlying gold asset, the perspective of integrating blockchain and gold from Novem's previous customers, the delay of the NVM public token sale and its next steps following recent regulatory approval, lessons learned from opening Novem's first gold store, and the team's plans to open more stores in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, how the team landed on the number of opening 100 stores and Novem's franchising system, how the global COVID-19 pandemic has impacted the gold supply chain, the nuances of offering NNN tokens to US investors, Novem's interest in NeoFS and oracles in the upcoming launch of Neo 3, a development update on NVM token staking and the Novem mobile app, and lastly, Novem's plans to list on new exchanges. So I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. Hey guys, what's going on? Dylan with the Neo News Today podcast. We are here today with Fouad Soultana. How you doing today, Fouad?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Dylan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have you. So just kind of jumping into this, can you share with our listeners who you are, what Novem is, and what your role at Novem is?
Yeah, so as Dylan said, my name is Fouad. I'm the COO at Novem Gold. So Novem Gold is a gold company from Liechtenstein. So we're coming from the gold industry, and we've been buying gold for many years, and now we're tapping into the gold-backed token market where we are tokenizing physical gold.
Very cool. So I polled the community before we had this conversation today, and one of the questions that somebody asked is, how is Novem different than other gold-backed token projects like Digix?
Mm-hmm. So as I already said, so the first very important thing is that we're coming from this industry. So it's easy actually to develop a token, but it's not easy to actually understand the gold market. So there's a lot of experience behind this project. A second thing, which is pretty important, is the infrastructure. So as we're having our business for many years now, we have all the contacts, all the important refineries, and all that stuff. So we're not in need to develop any new infrastructure. We can just leverage our existing infrastructure. So this is also a very important point. I would say those are actually the two most important points to actually launch a project like this. And the third pretty important differentiator is our company setup. So we actually set up in Liechtenstein. So Liechtenstein is the first country that introduced actually a blockchain law, the Blockchain Act. And this gives us a regulatory framework where we can operate with a certain security. That means that we can clearly say that our token owners are for 100% the gold owners, which is pretty important, or that we can say that no matter what happens to us, the gold is outside of the balance sheet, and gold a token owner can always redeem the physical gold if you wants to. So those are aspects that differentiate us from other gold-backed token projects, I would say.
Very cool. So the NNN token holder owns the underlying actual physical gold asset, and they don't necessarily own a portion of Novem's gold holdings, much like the GLD stock would.
No. So this is something that actually just exists, as far as I know, in Liechtenstein. It's called quantity ownership. That means that there's a storage agreement with a storage facility, and all the token owners actually share the storage place where the physical gold is stored. So we only supply the gold one time, and from that time only the token owner is the gold owner. So we don't own anything. So it's clearly token owner is 100% the gold owner.
Awesome. And you mentioned in your introduction and the differentiators between Novem and other projects that there's a depth of experience that come from the co-founders. So clearly, Novem had existing customers, traditional precious metal holders. I'm curious to hear what they might think about the integration of blockchain and this new technology into their own asset ownership model.
Yeah, so most of our clients actually are also investors in our new project, the Novem Gold project, because of certain problems that exist in the current market, which are, for example, that we have many intermediaries. For example, if we take this point, when you own a physical piece of gold and you want to sell it, then the retailer that is buying the gold from you is taking a huge cut. And having it on the blockchain allows to sell it peer to peer, so that you save a lot of money and you actually get more money for your physical gold. And those are points that our clients understand. So we didn't really had to convince them that this is a better solution. It was pretty obvious for them.
Awesome. In quarter one of this year, 2020, Novem received regulatory approval to conduct the NVM public token sale. So I'm wondering, what are the next steps for that public token sale?
Yeah, so we actually started the sale last year, but we wanted to clarify first the regulatory situation around the triple N token, so the NNN token, because we create an ecosystem that is interconnected. So the NVM benefits from every NNN sale. So this is why we decided last year that we are going to stop the NVM token sale until we get the regulatory approval for the NNN. And we now have the regulatory approval, and we're regulated and under Liechtenstein law. So we're now confident to relaunch. We relaunched actually the token sale in March, and now continuing the sale.
Cool. And what are Novem's intentions for how to use the proceeds from that public token sale?
So we the only goal is to grow the ecosystem. That means to open up more stores. Our goal is to open up 100 stores first here in Europe. As we know, all the people, we have the right people, we have the right infrastructure, so there shouldn't be a big problem. And we're now setting up also infrastructure outside of Europe to also open up stores in Asia, because there's a lot of demand for gold stores in Asia. and the Middle East.
And um, from your co-founders' experience, have they done business in these markets in Asia and in the Middle East prior to launching Novem as we know it today?
Yeah, one of our co-founders, Mario, actually has a lot of relationships with many business partners in Dubai. So we know the Middle Eastern market also very well. So what is rather new for us is the Asian market, but we are including more and more people that are well connected in the Asian market into our ecosystem to also grow into Asia.
Cool. One of the concerns I've seen pop up in the ecosystem is that maybe 100 stores is a bit too aggressive. So I'm wondering, how did the team land on the number 100 for opening 100 stores?
Yeah, so that's a very valid question that we are receiving oftentimes. Actually, there are hundreds of gold stories just in Munich here in Germany alone, or in the big cities. You find many gold stories which are all very profitable. Um, so how we came about 100, which seems pretty aggressive, actually, it really comes down to the model how you want to open up the stores. So we are going with a hybrid model where we own actually some of the stores, and the majority of stores are going to be franchise stores. So what we do is currently we are developing, or are actually in the final stages of developing, the franchise system where we're setting up all the stores. So we give the franchisees completely ready-made stores. We teach them about the gold market, how to buy gold, how to sell gold. They get our infrastructure. So this is something that currently does not exist. So you don't have to build a gold business from scratch, I would say. You get a ready-made store. And the first people that are going to be franchisees, I think, are going to be existing clients of us, because we're talking to some of them which are pretty interested for Europe, especially around Austria and Germany. And this is actually the strategy behind it. So if we think about a hybrid system with a franchise system behind it, 100 stores is an okay number. So we actually want to have more than 100 stores.
And the first Novum Gold store opened in Linz, Austria last September, I believe, in 2019. So today, how many stores are open, and how many stores do you envision opening in 2020?
Yeah, so we opened in September last year in Linz, and we have another one in Wels. Wels is a pretty small city right next to Linz, about 20 minutes. And so last year we actually wanted to open one more, but due to the regulatory questions that weren't clear at that time, we said, okay, let's stop that and open more stores in 2020. And now we have COVID, so we're looking at the situation, how COVID is going to develop. If it's going away pretty quickly, then we can start opening up more stores. We are ready. We are just waiting for the politicians, what they will say, and then we will see how many stores we can really open. So we want to open if if the COVID situation evolves, about 2 to 3 stores this year. So all these stores in different areas are proof of concepts. So the first proof of concept that we did was Linz, to really show that people would rather buy a gold back token instead of physical gold because of the advantages, and we proved that the gold store is already profitable. And now we are proving the same proof of concept in different areas here in Europe, and then we're gonna opening up pretty aggressively more stores.
Cool. So, COVID concerns aside for the moment, you just kind of touched upon this, but what has the response been from your customers who can buy gold and gold backed tokens in these stores? And what was some like a lesson that you learned from opening the first store?
Yeah, so the store has two different purposes. One, the first purpose is kind of generating revenue through the stores, and the other purpose is to educate people actually about go back tokens. Because you can imagine people here in Europe, if you talk to them about something blockchain related, they don't really have a clue, and especially the gold industry is very traditional. So the gold owners tend to be a little bit older. So if we start talking about blockchain, they don't really grasp what blockchain is. So what we are improving currently is the system how to educate people. So I think this is one big learning that we had in the last months, and but we've been pretty successful with it because we are growing the revenue from month to month.
That's that's good to hear. So, kind of like shifting into what has happened as a response to the global COVID-19 pandemic. Prior to our interview, you had mentioned that there was an impact to Novem's supply chain. So, what has that been?
Yeah, so due to COVID, most refineries had to close down, especially in Switzerland. And Switzerland has actually the biggest refineries, which are supplying not only gold traders like we are, but also banks, like governments. So those actually come first before a gold trader can order gold. Government always gets first the gold, um, and they had to close down completely. So the global gold supply chain was broken, and we noticed a huge disconnect, for example, between digital gold prices, if we look at the spot price, and prices for physical gold. Sometimes it was 4 or 5 times more in physical than the spot price, because people were just crazy about physical gold because they stopped trusting in euro, for example, and they just wanted to switch into gold. So this had a very heavy impact on supply chain as well on us. And what we did is, in the meantime, we didn't sleep. We closed actually more partnerships with more refineries, um, to decrease actually the time of supplying gold. So if you have a look on most gold e-commerce stores, you will see that delivery times currently are sometimes about 2 months, 1.5 months, which is pretty long. And what we had to do is to decrease the supply time, the delivery time from 4 weeks to 3 weeks to 2 weeks. So our goal is now to reach 1 week and decrease that even further.
the the uh the desire to hold gold and gold stocks in the United States has increased as we've seen drastic fluctuations in the equities markets. So I guess a question being a US based resident is there a timeline when US residents can be able to purchase NNN tokens?
Yeah, so the US market is a huge market that we are currently looking at. So for us, the first step was to get the regulatory framework for Liechtenstein right, and now we're looking also at US, and we actually already started to talk. Had some first talks last year with some government representatives, but I think this is going to take also quite some time, like it did in Liechtenstein, because you have to have the right foundation first, because before you start a business, otherwise it would be quite shaky.
Um, so I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and talk about Neo. I'm wondering what Novum's outlook is on the future iteration of the blockchain, Neo 3, And how is your team anticipating how the new blockchain will improve or change current processes for Novem?
I think oracles are going to be very important. So what we're looking at is we're very waiting a lot for Neo 3 because of oracles are going to be very important for, I think, for every business, because you have to have outside data getting into the blockchain, which is actually at the moment for our business case the most important point.
I've noticed that Grant Thornton has been releasing the quarterly audits on behalf of Novum. Is there's a sort of anticipation for NeoFS, the distributed file storage?
Yeah, so there are many processes like the audit that can be improved, that will be improved in future, I hope. So NeoFS is also something that we're looking at. So those are 2 points, NeoFS and I would say the oracles that are pretty important for us.
Cool. So touching on the Q1 2020 investor presentation that you delivered in, I believe it was January or February, you mentioned that you mentioned a handful of things. One of them being NVM token staking. So what's the current process looking like for that?
So Novem token staking is also in the final stages. The reason behind it is, I think, we from the blockchain industry understand the staking. If there's someone new to the blockchain industry, we want to have some kind of security for our investors to stabilize the price. So we had to really think about a model that makes sense, because not every staking model is the same. You cannot just use any staking model that's out there in the market. Sometimes you have to have your own solution, which in our case we have to have our own solution to kind of think about the market dynamics that are going on in this bear market, even if it's going up in the last days.
Is there a tentative time frame that NVM and NNN token holders can expect for the staking?
At the moment, I cannot really talk about a day, because we have a lot of developments next to the staking ongoing. So they have to be a little bit more patient until we can communicate dates.
And kind of before we wrap up, what's the status with the mobile application? Will users be able to stake through the mobile app? Will they be able to buy and hold NNN tokens on there? Is there a time frame for the app?
Yeah, so we actually talked about it earlier today in our team meeting. So what we had to do is to recreate first the whole buying experience, because if someone's coming, like I said, from a traditional industry, and you have to tell them now about KYC, how that works, what KYC actually is, you really have to think about a very flawless buying experience. So we recreated this first. We had extensive testing. We test our buying experience a lot. And now we have to convert this buying experience. We're currently converting the buying experience into our mobile app. And I think things like staking and other features are going to be in the mobile app as well.
Awesome. And last question. When can users expect new exchanges?
Yeah, new exchanges. So as I said earlier, we're currently looking at delivery times. So if we wanted to, we could list any time. So the first 2 exchanges are going to be Probit and P2P, B2B. So what's essential for us to list is to have very short delivery times, because if demand spikes on the exchanges, we have to supply new gold. And if that is not possible due to COVID at the moment, it doesn't really make sense to list, because you have to satisfy certain market dynamics. And this is the case that we are currently watching. So we're watching how all the whole COVID thing develops at the moment. and how fast other refineries can actually supply us with gold. Because you can imagine now the refineries had to close down, and there are a lot of people who actually ordered a lot of gold, and not only retailers but also a lot of banks. So they have a kind of backlog currently, and have to produce a lot of old gold orders first, because before they can supply new gold. So in short, we have to reduce the delivery time to 1 week so we can list on the exchanges. We are keen on hopefully listing in a month from now. So
Awesome.
first week of June.
First week of June. Cool. Well, Fouad, thank you so much for taking some time out to chat with us. It was great to finally be able to connect with you for the Neo News Today podcast.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. Looking forward to having you on again in the future.
Yeah, sure.
Cheers. Well, what did you think of that conversation? It was really interesting to learn more about Novem's lessons learned from the opening of its first store, and the team's faith in their ability to meet the ambitious target of opening 100 stores. I also enjoyed learning more about the gold supply chain, and was interested to hear how the recent pandemic has impacted Novem's processes. I will surely be keeping an eye on the development updates regarding NVM token staking, the mobile app, and new exchange listings. To keep up to date with the latest in the Neo ecosystem, visit www.neonewstoday.com. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Apple iTunes, and/or Spotify. And leave a 5-star review if you feel others should hear our content. Every subscription and review helps others learn more about the NNT pod and the Neo ecosystem. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the Neo News Today podcast, and we look forward to catching you next time.